Hello, Calling Up Community. I'm Claudia Alick, and today we are going to be reflecting on American Theater Magazine article. After 78 years, is it time for the Chronicle's little man to retire? The San Francisco paper's influential personified ratings icon, beloved by many readers, is facing fresh pushback from local theater artists. And this was written on February 11th, 2020 by Rob Weinert Kent. And I received a text message about it this morning from one of our community members who was feeling some ambivalence and wanting to unpack why they might be feeling some discomfort at this article. I, at the same time, was in a meeting where several people also brought up this article. So that was very, very useful in learning more about where people's feelings of discomfort were coming from. So, in a nutshell, the newspaper uses this iconography to rate things. So if a theater or film is really good, it gets the guy jumping out of his seat clapping, and if it's not good at all, it's garbage, and they think that we, the audience members, should not invest our time and our money in that cultural production. You'll see the empty seat. Now, ultimately, this conversation is important because culturally in the United States, cultural productions that are created by people of color receive less promotion, receive less resources to be made in the first place, but receive less promotion, receive less distribution, and that's on purpose. That's how you maintain a white dominant society. You suppress stuff that's not white dominant. And if you have only white people doing the work of reflecting on the work and telling people what they should support, that means that lens will be a white dominant lens that's judging all of that work. So last year, I attended an event from Theaters Advancing Social Change, Bay Area. This was a group, I believe they received funding from the Zellerbach Foundation. I'll leave links below. It was organized by Theater Bay Area, and this cohort received training from Art Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion training from Art Equity to increase their own personal cultural competencies. Then they created these task groups to look at Bay Area specific issues and work towards coming up with solutions for them. Very exciting. So in their presentation that they did last year, this was one of the big issues that they brought up. The little man, what they were going to do about the little man, and the progress that they were making. And I checked in with them today, and they are still working on it. Their task force has created a letter to the editor, and as always with groups, or as often is the case with groups that are gigantic, working with a huge coalition, and justice-based, they're taking their time because they really want to get it right. But that's what they're working on. So when I read this article, I assumed that this was about the thing that the local Bay Area artists were critiquing and doing something about, and that would be centered in the article. It's not even named in the article, actually. Also, the article exclusively interviews white people. There's not one person of color in the article. Now, after we receive the section of giving us familiarity of like what it's about, we do hear from Pam McKinnon, who is the white female artistic director of ACT, and she acknowledges it's a white supremacist icon. It's an icon that communicates, and I would name it as not a white supremacist icon, but I would name it as iconography that communicates white male supremacy culture. It's a little bit of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other kind of a distinction. So I'm agreeing with her. She quotes Lydia Diamond, who is an African-American playwright, who it seems like she saw this iconography and was like, that looks like a lawn jockey, which is a racist piece of iconography in the United States. Now, what I find interesting is the sentences that are added to this. To be clear, McKinnon doesn't expect the Chronicle or theater critics more generally to only give good reviews or to do her marketing for her. Why does that need to be made clear? There are several times in this article where it feels like it's doing a lot of labor for audience members that are not me. It's doing a lot of labor to make folks feel like this is not racialized when it is. And that people aren't asking for something ridiculous, which they're not. I'm not sure about the additional labor that seems to be visible in this article. But also, I'm deeply confused by the fact that some of the choices of who was interviewed, I'm very curious about. Was this intentional? Did they intentionally go to who they in their brains thought were the best experts, or was this accidental? Did they actually include a bunch of people of color, and it just coincidentally the folks who responded weren't? But I am deeply confused about the fact that a third of the article seems to be dedicated to giving voice to Adam Feldman, a white male writer from Time Out New York, their theater editor, or giving a full paragraph to Chris Jones, who's a white male writer for the Chicago Tribune, where they're just talking about the worth of critiquing in general. Is that actually the question that we need to be looking at? Is that what the community was critiquing? Were they saying, oh, we don't think things should be critiqued at all. Rating systems are terrible. Or were they making the point that this particular iconography represents a culture of potential non-representation? Is this iconography that needs to be changed? Just that. Does the iconography only need to be changed? We're not saying stop critiquing things or stop rating things. I think the community is just saying, could you come up with a different rating system that isn't just a white guy? But I'm not sure. All this to be said, I've given you context for the article. I hope this was useful. I can completely understand why some of the folks in the community are feeling like this particular take on the issue didn't completely reflect all of the things that they were concerned about. And I look forward to reading this letter to the editor that Task is creating. I'm deeply excited by that. All right. Thanks, Calling Up community. Have a good week.